Okay, guys, welcome back to another podcast. This is podcast number 11, and we're joined by a special guest today. Everyone say hi to Mickey.
How are you doing, guys? You all right?
Yeah, we're really good. I think Craig messaged me the other day saying that Mickey would be down for doing the podcast, and I was like, "Yeah, that'd be great. It'll be great to have the first guest to be you, mate. I've heard a lot of good things about you from Craig."
Yeah, we've had some pretty zany experiences over the last year or so, haven't we? Wow. The retreats that we've run together, and breathwork sessions and what have you. Yeah, it's been pretty nice. Lots going on. Crazy.
Yeah, we'll delve into all of that, and we'll also delve into how you got onto this path. Because I think Craig and I, for our first podcast, we talked about our paths leading up to this moment where we are in life. So, yeah, it'll be nice to get into that. We want to just say hi to Craig. How are you doing, Craig?
I'm all right, man. How are you?
I'm really good. Yeah, this is going to be really interesting to do a three-way, especially since there's a slight delay when it comes to Zoom. So, if one of us butts in, it'll be quite interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, people can get envious in three ways. That's why they're not for everyone.
Yeah, I wouldn't know anything about that, but yeah. Okay, so yeah, let's delve straight into it. So, Mickey, how'd you get onto this path?
Wow. Okay, where do you start? I'll tell you actually, my gateway into it was actually looking for success, money, success. Okay. That was the gateway, and I started reading some success books. And the ones that I was reading were, they all mentioned meditation and certain other bits and bats, like, certain other practices. Yeah. And it kind of organically led from there. So the success path, the books I was reading, one that I'll mention now actually, it was actually quite thorough, and it was called How to Get From Where You Are to Where You Want to Be, and it was Jack Canfield, The Success Principles. And there's a lot in there that still to this day is really, really useful, even though I'm not on that path anymore, right? Yeah. Really good book. And in reading that, I've just really made some big lifestyle changes, really started getting to know me, getting to know myself, getting to know what I liked and what I disliked, and just kind of broke away from that treadmill, that 9-5 treadmill of life. And I started listening to The Secret. Jack Canfield was on The Secret, if you remember that, and I listened to the audiobook every night for about probably 10 months, and I was visualizing, and then all my relationship crashed, and I lost my job and everything. It was like a good job, and it just, everything came crashing down. I was like, do you know what, I'm kind of free. I realized for the first time I had this mindset shift, and I was like, I don't have to do or be anything or be anywhere, or wow, I had this kind of break in life to choose again. And at that point, I just went, right, I'm going traveling, and I moved to the island of Ibiza, get some partying out of my system. And it's a very hedonistic island, right? So much partying and getting intoxicated and things like that. Met a lot of really interesting people as well. It's a real hippie culture, and I don't know if you know the history of that island, but there's a lot of history there.
Right, okay.
But then having sort of taken my own life into my own hands and taking responsibility, I realised that was one of the first chapters of that book, the Jack Canfield book, was take 100% responsibility for everything in your life. No half measures, basically, there's no compromise there. And that was huge for me. That was a big, big shift in my life from victim. It was a really little paragraph about so big. Right. And then in going there, I'd done that. I'm taking my life into my own hands, excuse me. And it really kind of shifted something in me when I realized I'm doing what I want to do. And within a year of being there, I ended up having my own body painting business, painting people as animals, which was so cool. I'm an artist anyway. I love art and painting and drawing and stuff. And within a year, I had my own business. It was earning a fortune. It paid for me to travel all around the world. And I was just like, wow, this is what happens when you live life on your own terms. It meets you halfway, making that commitment, taking responsibility, surrounding myself with the things that I actually really resonated with and really loved. And then life just went, oh, while you're here, have this opportunity, have this
relationship, have these friends, have this whatever, and it all sort of came together. While I was there, I was off the spiritual journey, if you like, but very much in the moment, living, which I suppose you could say is a spiritual trait, right? Living in the moment, enjoying every moment, making the most of each day. Not a day went by that I weren't living in gratitude. You know, sunshine, palm trees, beaches, loads of people on holiday, lots of smiling faces, lots of good music. It was incredible. Lots of money to spend there as well. So it was just like one big holiday. I only worked one day a week. Right, so I was like being on holiday, and I would have done that job for free. I would have done it for free. I loved it that much. Yeah. And so when I left there, I had a bit of a crash, come back down to earth. And I was doing a clothing business. Actually, this was one of the T-shirts that I created. And what happened was it was a little bit of a bump back down to earth. I don't know if anyone, if anyone's ever tried this clothing game, but it's such a difficult game to be in, really difficult. Yeah. And it kind of got on top of me, and I remember hitting a real stress point. I'd ordered like 500 items, and they arrived. And when they arrived, they'd done them in the wrong fabric, and there was nothing I could do about it. And I remember just hitting this crunch moment where I was so stressed out. And I went upstairs and I looked at myself in the mirror. And as I looked at myself in the mirror, I was like, I could see depression creeping in. I've not had it for a lot of years, about 7 years prior, I think, something like that. And I felt it creeping in, and I was like, this is not happening to me again, no chance. And I went straight back to that book, that Success Principles, just because I knew there was some real gold in there, right? And I went back to it, and I remembered that 100% responsibility again, and I was like, it's all me. It's all me. And then I started using affirmations, which have a place. I don't use them now, but it definitely has a place. And that led me to a real synchronous experience where before I knew it, I was back. I was on an ayahuasca retreat, and I used something called Bufo Alvarius, which really, really, really changed my whole life. It's like a death experience for anybody who doesn't know. It's like when you use this toad medicine. It's actually an excretion from the glands of the Sonoran desert toad. When you use that, it's like dying. I remember thinking, oh my God, I've done too much. I'm dying. And then I got to the point where I was like, I've done it. That's it. Checking out. So I let myself go and surrendered to death. I think when you have that moment and you surrender to death, and then you have another chance at living, things change a little bit, right? It's bound to. And yeah, things were very, very different. My vibration had shifted. That hyper awareness, mate, that you can see that you're having a conversation with the universe at all times. And every thought I was having, everything I was thinking about, the next song on the radio, the lyrics were telling me what I needed to know, and signs, driving by signs in the street and stuff. I was like, wow, this is incredible. Hyper awareness. So that was the real shift from playing around with spirituality and liking the idea, and then shifting more into that from looking for success, looking for hedonism. It was probably that moment went really incredibly deep. Nice.
So how do you balance the two out? How do you balance the spiritual aspect without feeling as though when you're doing the material stuff and you're living life in terms of obviously running your business and all the other stuff other products that you have to offer in terms of the retreats and etc. How do you balance it out without it feeling like you're selling a product?
Do you know what? I still do sometimes feel like that. So I avoid it. I avoid that area of sales. I actually used to work in sales that was the good job that I mentioned, right? Well-paid job, not a good job. And do you know, I knew every manipulation tactic in the book. And the way I used to justify it to myself, and I guess it's valid, I used to say, I'm helping people make the right decision for them, because it was accident insurance. And I'm like, well, if they hurt themselves and they haven't got any money, their family's not getting fed. There's a problem there, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm helping them to make that decision. And now, one of our class as a mentor, Kyle Cease, it says something like, your heart is the best marketing guru in the world. It's like, your heart is the one that knows best. You don't have to study all that stuff. Come from the heart, write from the heart, write any promotional material from the heart, put your heart and soul into everything you do. And that's how I'm operating at the moment. That's what I do. I just want to get things out to the world. You know, I want to get a message out. I want to get a fresh vibration out to as many people as possible.
Yeah.
On
awesome.
that point, man, coming from the heart, something that I'd learned a lot from working with you, Mickey, and the teachings that you share out. And personally, I found it's such a natural way to go about whatever aspect of business or message that you want to deliver, or just how you live your life. Like when we've discovered what it is to be in the heart and to come from there. And that's also a good point to go in, is how do you know if you're coming from the heart or not? But through that practice of living through the heart, it does dramatically change your life. Like there's very little tension or in the sense of conflict with whatever's going on the outside, if you're truly looking for the best of the person, of the subject, of the object, and of yourself, because it's all going through, all right, there's something at hand, how do we solve this? How do we solve this the best way for everybody? And how that comes with authenticity as well. Like the business aspect was really enlightening for me to see that you can do what you want to do and offer it out, and it doesn't have to be a sales pitch or wrote in a way that you've learned from the CEO or something. It's like, what is your message? And deliver it from your heart, and the right thing will come back around from it. And as tried and tested as that is with yourself, from me adopting those methods, 100% works. And you can see in your life where we will be doing that unconsciously, not realizing we're coming from the heart or we're coming from our truth, and yet the results always come in the right way, whether we're aware of it or not.
Yeah,
100%. Yeah.
With what you're just saying there as well, I think when we genuinely are trying to help, we'll automatically use the language patterns. All these language patterns are it's all reverse engineered, isn't it? It's like hypnotherapy. Someone didn't think if I do X, Y, Z, somebody will become in a state where they're suggestible. They reverse engineered the fact that was already happening, and they'd witnessed it and said, oh, what happened there to make that take place? You know, and then they reverse engineered. So this is when you're actually coming from the right place. We all automatically use those language patterns. We're bound to, because we know what it feels like to be in this stuck place, right? So we'll look outwards and say, I can see what I used to feel in other people. That is still there. I can see it. I know what they're going through, and I want to help them because I know I can. So the thing you write is going to say, look, I know how you feel. You feel like this. I know it all seems like a mountain to climb. It all seems so difficult, but there are some very succinct practices you can use, and you can tailor them to yourself and make it work for you. And it is quite easy. Or simple, should I say. It's not always easy, but it's simple. And just to raise your vibration and get to know yourself. And I think this is the real message, right? So when we put it that way, it's authentic and it ticks all the boxes. You've addressed their problem. You're speaking to them as a person. You're saying, why you? I've been through it myself. These are like the pegs that people use as check, like the checklist when they're writing sales copy. And you will find that probably 90% of the time you tick every single box when it comes from the heart without realizing.
Yeah, 100%. So I just want to add that when Craig and I were talking about a similar topic, I think it was on our second or third podcast, we were talking about careers and how to pursue the right career for you, or the right sort of position for you. And I mentioned an example where Sadhguru, he released an interesting video about a month ago or something, where it was a story he was telling. So it was basically about a monk in India, a famous monk in India actually. He was on his journey looking for the truth and looking for a spiritual guru. Now, he has stumbled upon a lady, and this lady, usually in the olden days in India, when a monk or an ascetic comes to someone's house and asks for alms, then the person usually responds and provides them with food or some grains or something, some water or shelter, etc. Now, this monk became very very angry because no one was responding to his plea. He kept shouting out to the door. He knew they were in because he could hear the conversation going on. And the lady when the lady actually replied, she said, give me a second, I'm doing something, I'm busy, but I'll attend to you in a second. So, a certain amount of time went by. This monk was getting really angry, and finally this lady walked out. And what this lady did is she completely read this man's intention, and the monk was completely taken back by it. And he goes, how is it that someone like you can read me? I've meditated for this long. I've done this and that. How are you able to tell who I am? And she goes, well, I'm nothing. My guru is the person you want to talk to. So he was interested in meeting this lady's guru. So with this idea of a guru being someone, who has long hair, beard, and just looks like a very wise old person, it turned out the guru of the lady was a butcher. And he was just completely taken back by it. He was like, it's bad enough that a lady's telling me what to do, and now I'm having to watch this butcher killing animals, and this lady telling me that her guru is a butcher. So he's watching this butcher slaughtering animals. He's gone to him and said, look, I want to have a conversation with you. And the butcher's basically said, wait for me to finish my duty, and then we'll have a talk. And then once the duty was finished, he went over to the butcher's place and he started telling him, he goes, it doesn't matter what job you do in life, as long as that job is done with the purest intention. So whether you're an executioner or whether you're a judge and you're obviously you're sentencing a criminal to maybe even death, if you're doing it out of pure compassion, if you're doing it out of no attachment towards that task at hand, then you're doing it in the purest sense. And I think that really does resonate with me. It shows that regardless of whether, because I've had friends who are attorneys and they're having to defend people they know that are guilty, but you do your job with the fullest intention of serving that job without any attachment towards that person that you're defending or the actual task at hand. And I think that's really important in today's society where people have jobs from all sorts of disciplines in life.
Yeah, I mean, I have I'm kind of careful with my beliefs because I know that beliefs can be like the beginning of a downward spiral if you're too attached to them, right? But in my experiences through the entheogens, meditations, breathwork and things like that, it's kind of become very clear to me in, seeing the universe from this perspective, from Mickey's perspective, right? That everything's agreed. Everything we're doing is agreed between us. This is just life and consciousness interacting with itself in its own way, the way it wants to be interacted with by itself. And it's like life wants the experience of being at both ends. So let's say if somebody hurts another person, the person doing the hurting and the person being hurt are both agreed for that to take place so they can both have this experience.
Yeah.
And, it's a really useful perspective, especially when it comes to things like forgiveness or acceptance of what's going on and not being too resentful and stuff like that, like those low vibration energies. So in terms of what you're saying there, I believe that there's not one soul on this planet that's not in alignment if you can define alignment with consciousness is getting what it set out to get in that in that moment and to experience what it set out to experience.
Yeah, you have to have a synergistic process to happen. You need to have someone that, I think Alan Watts talks about walking up the stairs or walking up a mountain. The mountain at the same time walks you up, because without that mountain, there isn't you walking up the steps. So you need that synergistic process in life and the dualistic nature of it.
That's really good. That I like that.
Yeah. So what age were you when you had this realization that you weren't happy and you wanted to
But it
embark on
was,
the
like I
spiritual
say,
journey?
it was kind of gentle, weren't it? It was. So I'll tell you what I didn't mention before, which was a really, really important part of my life. Was when I was 18, my friend's dad lent me a book, Conversations with God. I was 18 and I read that and I remember crying, which was such a strange thing for an 18-year-old lad who likes nothing more than going out and getting boozed up, drinking and what have you, living a very sort of urban life and no sort of sign of spirituality whatsoever. And it had me in tears like several times reading this book. So that kind of planted a seed, but then I was off again back into the self-destruction for a long time. So that was when I was 18, I was introduced to that. When I moved to Ibiza, I was actually 28. So it was probably about 26 when I picked up the first real sort of spiritually inclined thing. I was sort of toying with it for a while. There was something felt right about it, but it didn't fit in my social circle. So I was kind of only playing with it a little bit here and there. And until I realized that, the path is more important than the social circle. And then perfectly, life does its thing. And I realized the friends who didn't resonate left, and the ones who, even if, in fact, some of my really good friends who didn't resonate are still just as good of friends. no judgment there. They're just like, yeah, that's Mickey's thing. He's weird. He does his thing, and that's cool. And they carry on doing their thing, and there's no barrier about it. There's no, no Mickey taking or anything. It's just is what it is. So I like to share that because it's a little bit of encouragement. Because I think people hold back, right? Because they're scared that they're going to alienate the friends and the family. I mean, you'll get new friends. Your family will fall in line generally. And if not, maybe, you've got to put yourself first. You've got to put your journey before everything. When you do that, everyone else who you touch is going to receive this warm, loving vibration of joy, happiness, high vibration of acceptance. And it can only be a good thing, right?
Yeah. I just think you guys have just gone through, you've experienced a life beyond spirituality, which is the material, the life that most people are adopting. And then for you guys to kind of awaken out of that, that's pretty amazing. I think, Craig, you're pretty similar as well, right? The experiences you've had and the journey you've gone through as well.
Yeah, very, very similar in my own version of it. And that is a good point to bring home is as they say, coming out of the spiritual closet, and embracing that path and that aspect of yourself. Because for me, I was on it after the meditation and getting into Buddhism. I was straight there. There was no sort of dilly-dally, and it was like, this is right. There's just something about this that was bigger than where I was. And nobody that was around me had ever mentioned it or would have a conversation about it because the information wasn't there. So for me, it was, I'm going to go and explore this cave, with my torch and see what it's all about. And that was just the love of what it was saying. It wasn't even a thought, there wasn't any resistance to what will people think in a certain sense. It was just, wow, what the hell? I want to go and know what more of this is. And then I think as it progressed, I'd attained enough connection with those spiritual beliefs and the understanding to for people to ask questions, and a few jokes here and there, but most of the time people saw that it was a very sincere choice to pursue that lifestyle. And yeah, I'd never really encountered much resistance outside of it in the outside world. And I think nowadays it's so much more popular and common for people to be on some form of a spiritual path, and which is great. There's so many conversations to be had and the experience to be shared, and it's just very encouraging for people who are on their way to become fully involved with their path, to know that it's where we should be and it's welcomed.
Yeah, I think tying in with what you just said there, I think there's almost like I don't know if you ever heard of the book. I think it's called A Breaking Away from Spiritual Materialism or something. I can't remember the exact title, but we can get into the trap of almost having that same mindset that you have with your material path on the spiritual path. So you've gone from drinking, drugs, sleeping around, etc., and then now, chasing money, and then someone's come into your life, or some experiences, some books come into your life, you've read it, and you've taken the spiritual path. But if you have that same attachment towards the spiritual path that you had towards the material life, you're doing exactly the same thing. You're attaching yourself and you're shackling yourself, like we said in the previous podcast. You're shackling yourself with gold as opposed to shackling yourself with iron. So you have to just kind of be mindful that you don't get caught up in that web.
What does that web look like?
It's a tough one. I just think I've been fortunate, and Craig knows that I never really got really deep into the material lifestyle. I was brought up in my Indian culture and Hinduism, so I was always adopting those traits anyway. I was living by those traits. I always felt like there was home in that environment. So I don't think I'm the person to kind of say what are those what is that web like. I think you guys will probably have a better idea than I do. What's your take?
So like the web, you're talking like spiritual attachment. People wear it like an outfit.
Yes. So, a spiritual person has a certain look to him. If it's a monk who's generally, an Indian monk, he'll have long hair, a beard, and will just end up just meditating and wearing robes. So it's moving away from that sort of stereotype of spiritualism, almost.
Do you know what? I think the world's calling for that at the moment. I think this is a big deal. Actually, it's a really good point, I think, to access and to talk about. I honestly believe personally that all mental health, and I don't mean sort of very physical mental health as in people who are born with congenital mental defects and things like that.
Yeah.
But mental health, like a lot of depression and anxiety and things like this, I think so much of that is a lack of spirituality in the life. And again, like I know Craig and myself both, like I said, the hedonistic lifestyle, altered states of consciousness. We knew that there was something that was missing, and it was a connection. It was some sort of altered state of consciousness, right? This goes back as far as we know, as far as we can trace mankind. Altered states have always been very crucial to man, always. I think say some of the earliest settlements had shaman with plant medicines and rituals and singing and dancing and around the fires and all the music and anything they could do to raise the vibration and reach these upper echelons of consciousness, you know?
Yeah.
And I think with the mental health problems, it's like there's this huge void. There's something missing and they don't know what it is because it's not normalized enough. It's either I go out and I drink or I play sport. These tend to be just a few little sort of different types of people. There's the person who's self-destructive, goes out drinking and stuff. There's a person who's obsessed with sport and they throw themselves into that. And then there's those weird spiritual people over there that wear robes and you know, do their own weird stuff and dance with crystals and things like that. So they have this really weird, hairy, fairy kind of view of what that looks like and they don't want to get involved, which makes me really grateful for apps like Headspace, for example, because it really normalized it. It's not spiritual in any way. They're just like, yeah, just feel what's going on, feel what's going on in your body. That's such a massive, crucial step in the right direction, is to start feeling, right? Start feeling. I always say to someone, you know, all your problems can be solved really with this one thing: start feeling. Because when you do that, your vibration's going to start to go up. And when your vibration goes up, everything else you need will meet you as you get there to the matching vibration of the thing that's your next step, will always find you. So just start feeling, let go of those low energies, you know, process those energies that are stuck in the body that are keeping the vibration down. And the only way you can do that is to feel it. So, I mean, what does spirituality look like? It could be something as simple as feeling, couldn't it? Doesn't have to be dressing in a certain way and, you know, having dream catchers all over your house and a big Native American on your wall like I have. It doesn't have to be like that. It looks really cool. I love it.
Can you show us the chief, Mickey?
I might be able to. There he is over there.
Oh, nice. Beautiful.
There's a bit of a thing in the way there, but it's cool.
But that is just part and parcel of it, you know? It's part and parcel of the experience. You bring these things on in a way to almost, you wear it with a badge of honor. You know, like people wearing uniform, like people wearing the jobs with a badge of honor. You wear it with a badge of honor, and you add more things to your spiritual path. So you don't. For me, the modern spirituality should encompass parts from all spiritual cultures in the past. I think we've got this habit, and modern Hinduism has been just as guilty as any other religion, where we've segregated ourselves. Like there's conflict between each of the sectors of Hinduism to say, you know, almost like who's got the biggest dick. And I think it's not the right approach. The approach should be very much individualistic. It should be based on your experience. And like you said, spirituality starts from just thinking of what's going on in your head, just sitting there and just thinking about what's playing in your head, and going back to your talk about the anxiety and you know, depression and stuff like that. Like you said, the people that have got the physical issues, you know, that are born with it, that's a separate category, you know. But when it comes to mental health and stuff, I think the biggest problem that we have is, and I think Craig and I talked about this, is we're too caught up in our own stories, our own bullshit. Like, what's happening to me? Why is this happening to me? The victimhood and acting like a victim in the scenarios. But instead, we should be looking at the opportunity to serve other people. How are other people going? What are other people going through? What's happening with them? and to try and get out of your own space and just try and get out your own way. And that's why selfless service in the East is considered one of the biggest virtues. So when we talk about the different disciplines of yoga, karma yoga, where selfless action and self-discipline comes into. So you give as much as possible without asking for anything in return. And I think that is something that's missing from today's capitalistic society, whatever you want to call it.
And something else I'd touch on there is this is a real nuanced point, what we're talking about here. It's really nuanced, and it can be misinterpreted so easily and cause a lot of damage. Because what you're talking about there, to someone who's not kind of in this arena fully, it sounds very close to people pleasing, which is not a good place to be coming from. Yeah, it's not a constructive place to be coming from, because there's a covert contract in place, right? It's, you owe me now. Like, I'll be really nice to everyone, and then people will like me. And if people don't like me, then I will resent them because they should, because I've done something for them. So what you're talking about there, just to highlight that nuance, is it's really important to when you said to not ask for anything in return, but as well as to not expect anything in return.
Yes.
It's not just about asking, it's about expecting. It's about, is there a covert contract in place? Are you doing it secretly to get something? Even unconsciously as well, The people I've worked with in the past, nearly every one of them had the same problem, which was people pleasing. And it was causing them a hell of a lot of discomfort, self-rejection, stuckness. They were affecting the people around them negatively because it's like an energy vampire, isn't it? People pleasing, it can be real energy draining. It's not the person you invite to the party first, is it? Yeah. It's not the person who comes in and keeps complimenting everyone and telling everyone all the good things about themselves. And, it gets a little bit, it wears a bit thin. I'd rather someone be really direct, really honest, big open heart, really authentic. That's what draws you in, right? That's what draws me in. That's what I connect with. And if that person then goes out and serves other people, then that seems to be the right place to come from. The big, authentic, open heart and coming from the right place. The mantra, this runs through my head all the time when I'm doing things, or if I have a sort of question, if I'm questioning what I'm doing, it's I always come back to, it's not what you do, it's the place it comes from.
Yeah, 100%.
Doing the exact same thing, but if it's coming from a different place, it can be either very constructive and useful or very destructive and redundant, and not a good place to be coming from.
And that brings in the power of intention and what energy intention brings with it. So is there any way that you use intention in a routine at all, Mickey, or how you use that in your life?
Yeah, absolutely. This actually came about relatively recently. You get the same lesson comes to you time and time again. And eventually you go, now I've realized what to do with that lesson. So I've had this thing where I had a real sort of cataclysmic awakening moment where I realized love is all that really matters to me. That is it. Nothing else. And, as cheesy as that can sound to people when they're thinking of emotional love, I'm not talking about that. That as well, don't get me wrong. I love the emotion of love, right? It's gorgeous. And the hugs and the kind words and that sort of
affirmation stuff,
Yeah. But I'm talking about that electric love that's completely ineffable, indescribable, that thing that cleanses every cell in your body when it's present. Or when you allow it to enter your body, I should say, it's always present. And I realized in my life, this kept coming at me. This is what you are. You are this. You are this. This is all you are here for, is this thing. And it kind of showed me, just to go off on a little bit of a tangent, that some people are here for different things. I mean, yes, we're all love, but some people might come here to embody forgiveness. Some people might come here to embody gratitude. There's different reasons people might want to be here. But coming back to that one, the intention, when I realized that my purpose on this planet, and I knew this at soul level because I had a moment where all programs and everything completely dissolved from my body, and I was pure awareness. And in that moment, as I looked around the room, all I could see was souls and these contorted bodies that were all constricted with programs and pains. And I could see these beautiful beings inside that were not being hurt in any way, shape or form. They were just along for the ride, just enjoying the process. And this person's all contorted and and suffering, right? And I could see this thing, and I was like, from that place, I was like, this is why we're here, is to experience this, to be able to see the truth. And as time's gone on, this kept coming to me, and I realized my intention now is to make decisions what will allow my purpose for being here is a pulse. It's a pulse of love to go out for more people to experience more of that experience that I experienced that day. That's why I'm here, to experience that myself and to share that with as many people as possible. So it's to release the programs, to let go, to see what's underneath, to be consciously what's underneath, rather than it just being there looking out through all the programs, right? So yeah, my intention, Craig, to go through life and make decisions is, does it feed into that? Does it make that possible? Are my actions and my words and the things I'm doing contributing to this pulse going out into the world or the universe, if you want to look at it that way, that's going to cause more people to feel more of that real love, divine love? Yeah.
Wonderful, man. Very well said. So you'd say you have your path, which is quite direct, but within that path, you're accepting and work with anything that comes along on your journey.
Sorry, just say that.
So your path or your intention of this mission for love, that's your direction. That's where you're going home towards. And as you're on that journey, anything around it comes is just it's given that flavor of what it is you're trying to share out. Yes. Anything that comes. So you've got mission and then life at the same time. It's never a conflict of. It's, I know where I'm going with how I'm getting there, but I'll walk along the way.
Yes, and everything that life does in and around that is only a reflection of what I'm putting out, showing me what I can let go of so that I can experience more of that. That's all it is. Everything. I'm hallucinating this reality, right? We're all just, there's a TED talk about that, about hallucinating your reality. And we're hallucinating this to show ourselves what we need to let go of, or what we get to let go of to experience what we truly are underneath. And it's up to us if we want to play in this illusion and this reflection of the shadow, or if we want to let go of it. That's a choice. There's no right or wrong, right? In my version of reality, the way that I see things. I don't want to say that anything's right or wrong, because we're all on our own path. Something that's coming so clear to me at the moment is it's your own path. You're doing it for life itself. Life's chosen to have us as this little point of consciousness, hasn't it? This point of awareness. And it's like, so when I make that really, really stunning, I'm doing that for God, if you like. I'm doing that for life. I'm doing that for the universe. I'm gonna do a good job for it, for the big me rather than the little me. Where was I going with that? All right, so yeah, the love thing. Do you know, a good friend of mine reached out to me recently talking about the COVID stuff and the conspiracy side of it. And I'm glad he did, because it really helped me it put a little bit of effort in, and I realized I was quite dismissive at first. I just put, I'm fearless. It put like maybe 6 messages and all these things, and he'd done a bit of research and sent me it, and I just put, I'm fearless, and that was it. I thought, I did apologize afterwards and go, sorry mate, that was a bit dismissive, but it's on a different time zone at the other side of the world. So I was like, the fact that I just put that, and I was expecting an immediate response and a conversation to open, it was 12 hours before I saw it, so it looked really abrupt, and I was like, sorry. I could see you'd put the effort in to share that with me you thought I'd be interested and what have you. But it just really helped me put into words what I was just talking about. And I said, basically, mate, I don't want to dismiss what you're saying, and I honor what your journey is. And I says, but here's mine, to be this pulse of love, to embody love, and I says, anything that doesn't fit that, I'm either gonna use love if I have to. If that is in my life, I will use love to accept that thing. I will embody love in that moment. If I don't need to, I'll just move it to one side. I'm not interested. It's not in my interest to stray from what I know is my truth. And it really helps filter out anything that's not in alignment very easily. When you know what you want your life to do, it's very easy to filter out the stuff that you don't, that's just noise, right? Distraction and noise. And filter in people like you guys, and more time to do things like this, and more presence with my partner to, spend beautiful connecting time together, you know, to really connect and share that vibration.
What was the clarity that made you so committed to your mission, Mickey? And it's the experience you shared before, I'm sure. And what is it that's kept you to it? And yeah, how have you stayed so clear with sticking towards that and not venturing off into what many of us can do, myself included, is going from teaching to teaching or course to course, trying to find what it is, even though you may have already passed that. And you'll come back round to it as always, but to save, I suppose, time to shorten that conversation, is how did you know when you're completely resonating 100% with that path, that it's not a passive thing or a spur of the moment thing, it's this is me and this is my commitment?
Do you know what I think might have done it? If I look at it consciously, I've not really looked at that crucial moment, but I think it might be. There's two moments. One of them was when I had the Kundalini activation, right? And I was like, okay, this is crazy. I didn't know what that meant at that time. You know, my body was doing the movements and the yoga and stuff like that. And I was like, okay, it took 8 months to learn what Kundalini was. And I went, that's what's happened. But the evening that happened, I was committed to something. I knew my body was going through a very deep healing process. And I was like, I heard people had these experiences and then stopped having them. And I was like, I'm not going to allow that to happen. I owe it to myself to heal whatever it is that's been going on. I've done a lot of inner child work and I can't get that little me out of my mind, the little me that suffered so badly as a child. And I was like, I owe it to that little me to do this work as well. You know, there was a little bit of that, and a healthy owing, not like I feel guilty if I don't. It's like, it comes from a place of love. But then I knew, okay, I'm going to keep letting these movements happen and start to align and cleanse this body. But I think the next time, Craig, actually was probably when we was in Pennsylvania in America, and I'd just met my partner Emma, and we'd just been reunited after, because we met and then we spent 2 months apart, and then we were reunited. And it was when we connected, and I realized that I was like, the way that I was holding her, I'd suddenly start to make adjustments on her body and things like that, like just very organically or intuitively. I can't really describe it. But then I was like, oh my God, there's something happening here. And all of kind of, I can't describe this in a way unless someone's experienced it. But I guess, you know, like when you yawn, this is how I normally describe it. When you yawn and you go, oh, and your body stretches and it just knows where to go. You don't deliberately put it somewhere. It was like that, but it was doing that with me already. But then it started doing it with my partner, and I realized that I was adjusting her body and healing her. And I was like, okay, there's something larger than me at play here. And I think it was at that point that something really, really deeply set in. I was like, my life went, okay, that's where I'm going. It's something more than me, which is interesting. Actually, I did a podcast recently and someone brought up, we always say it's bigger than me. And it's like, it depends if you resonate with this and that's bigger than you, or, oh, that's me and this is just the body that I'm embodying. so I'd add that in there. Yeah, I think that was it, mate. Yeah. What about you?
What about me? In regards to knowing the path?
Yeah, when you're just like, okay, this is it, sold, done.
From that first experience of meditation, it was like, I couldn't not pursue it from that point, and everything along the way just added towards more reasons why I must pursue this path. You know, that experience of meditation was something I'd never felt, and it's just, there is more there. There's so much more out there, and it's not going to be found if we're, you know, not doing anything, doing the things that don't add to that. As you said, does it add more to where I want to be going with my path, or does it detract? 1 second. Okay. Abs is just bringing in a mountain of shopping and don't need the gym.
Yeah, we can hear it in the background.
Yeah, so it was finding that point of meditation, and then the other things on the way that came with that pursuit of the path. The dream yoga, you know, the lucid dreaming, the entheogens, the plant medicines, the tantra, the breath work, meeting like you guys, and there was just so much. It was always linked back to that exploration of consciousness, and for me understanding what life is, what it is, what this experience is, and how amazing it is to be able to view it on the way. So yeah, it's the commitment really, like yourself, it wasn't a consciously made thing, it's just always been there since that first point. And then the experiences have just done nothing but add to it and go, I know absolutely nothing. There's so much magic going on in the world and so much life happening, and I won't be able to explore it if I can't not explore it. So yeah, it's just commitment from day one, I guess.
I said mine's love. We've spoken about this before, and Craig says yours was truth, right?
Yeah.
Truth. So yours was got away from the first meditation. Truth. That's it.
Yeah.
What about you?
My path was slightly different. So I was exposed to this all my life. So I've been surrounded by monks my entire life, and it's just my father and my grandfather were very spiritual people. So their guru was the brother of almost like the equivalent of the Pope monk. So he was a very powerful monk himself. And my brother and I were both blessed under him. So we were born under his blessing. So yeah, we were exposed to monks our entire lives. We were receiving teachings from monks our entire life. When we moved to the UK when I was 3 years old, we would get regular visits from monks every 6 to 8 weeks. You know, a sort of a group of monks will come down just to visit us. Not just me, but the local temple and the other Hindu guys as well. But I just think, so I toyed a tiny bit with the Western lifestyle because I was exposed to both East and West. And as I was delving into the Western lifestyle, I always saw the resistance from the East because I felt the politics were kicking in, and I was never a fan of any of the politics. You know, I still strongly feel like whatever you're doing in terms of your spirituality should be your own journey. And I feel like there's been a case where people will read all these ancient scriptures and give you their interpretation of the scriptures, but for me, it's more about, I'd rather you read a tiny extract of that and you apply that to your life to the fullest. You experience that and you take it on board to experience that tiny bit of sort of ancient wisdom in your life. If you're not doing that, then it's pointless. So if you're saying to me that, this is the true path and this is what the scriptures say, you should be on that path. If you haven't, if that person hasn't gone through that experience, for me, it's saying you're talking from blind sort of faith, blind faith in a book. Tell me of your experience. And from what I've learned is people, mainly in the Western society, when they talk about certain things and they talk about having emptiness and almost feeling like their life doesn't have a purpose, I was lucky that I could fall back to my Eastern lifestyle. And as I got into meditation with all the breathwork stuff I've been doing for the last 6 to 8 months with Craig, and just delving into that side. So I've always had an issue with meditating. I've always felt like I'm a person that just can't sit there and meditate. But going more into it and obviously doing the daily puja, which is a form of meditation anyway, and then trying to apply the breathwork to that really opened up my eyes, and I started to really feel that universal love you're talking about. I really experienced that in my first breathwork class with Craig. And it was just a bunch of strangers. The only person I knew from that room was Craig, and we barely kind of knew each other anyway. So it was from that experience of, again, seeing everything that I've learned in these books that mentioned this and that was coming out, and I could finally experience it and almost see that tiny glimpse of it. And then I realized, okay, this path is definitely, it was always the right one for me. I was never really materialistically driven anyway, so that path always resonated with me. And now it's just a matter of just meeting more people that are on this path, because I always felt for many, many years that I was alone on this path. No one was going through what I was going through. So to meet people and that are going through similar things, and to like I don't know if Craig's mentioned this to you, but just being on the celibate brahmacharya path has been a huge eye-opening journey for me as well.
What do you think, right? This is something that's come up for me when I visited India and I was in Rishikesh. Is I felt like a lot of the people who were there had been, because they'd been taught it for so long, like their whole lives, the whole spiritual journey for them seemed to be very cerebral. Like I'd see them doing the rituals that they do, and there was no heart in it. It was just dum, 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 just doing the. I never did memorize the mantras and things like that, but yeah, they'd just be doing the thing like a process, just like you'd do the washing up or like you'd run a bath, and And I remember thinking, they never really spoke about love. There's talk about other things like gratitude and yoga postures and meditation and God, but they'd never really talk about love. And there was very little spoken in terms of vibration, just where we were, the people I spoke to. I'm not saying that's the case all over at all. But do you think like when somebody's fed it cerebrally from a very young age, do you think that could actually hinder receiving the experience, or does it help it? What do you think? That's just something that I wonder personally.
So from what I had experienced, we always talk about this in terms of the modern generation of Hindus compared to the previous generation of Hindus. So my grandfather's generation, and to a certain extent my father's generation, we always had this criticism. And now I look at it and think it's not really, I don't criticize it anymore. But when I did criticize it, it was almost everything was robotic. Like you said, they would do the rituals, the sort of singing the mantras and not really knowing why they're doing it, not really questioning why they're doing it, just going by what. So their mentality back then is if your father or someone that's your guru or someone you respected said something, you would do it without a heartbeat. So if they said to you, you need to leave your wife, you would do it without a heartbeat. Or if you need to remarry, you would do it without a heartbeat. And I always felt a certain level of almost like it's a puppeteer, someone controlling the strings, and just because someone said to you that you need to do it, people automatically start doing it. I always felt a sense of, animosity towards that. But then as I started delving more into it, I realized that some people are doing it from the unconscious mind. So we see it as a physical attribute, and we see it as, are they actually doing it because this is how they live their life? Like you said, it's like doing a basic chore. When you go deep within that, you start to realize that they can switch off that conscious awareness and go into their unconscious awareness, and now they're starting to do it unconsciously. But being unconscious is not necessarily considered a bad thing if you've achieved that level of almost doing it without autonomy or instinct. It's just there in them, it's ingrained in them, just like wearing clothes is for us or writing is for us. So I think there's a sense of liberation in that. To almost do it without any sort of like the body's just doing whatever it wants to do.
Yeah, that's interesting. I suppose when you're doing the mantras, your tongue is still touching the pressure points in the mouth in the right way, and the vibration's still being created, and there is an intention there, and you still are probably accessing your alpha and theta brainwaves, right? So things are still shifting. Yeah, I get it.
So what did you feel when you saw that? Like, how did you feel towards that? All that? Did you feel like it was a bit superficial?
No, definitely didn't think it was superficial. I just kind of, it was strange because personally, what I've realized is when I really pray, this is such a funny, stupid, little story, but I was with all this energy going through my body. I mean, I can feel it all the time, like electricity just running through my body. I'm very, very aware of it, like most of the time, it's always just waiting to go and do something. And I got to the point where I was like really deeply realizing, oh my God, what's actually happening? I did some research on it. I was like, wow, this is like a really, really big deal. What's going on right now? My body's actually switched and turned a corner where this energy has decided to heal me, the whole of me. And I was like, wow. And I remember thinking, like taking some time to sit down and put my hands on my heart, and I was like, thank you. And I was really grateful. And what I realized was, that's called praying. That's what prayer is. And for me, praying was when I'd done it for years. I was brought up Catholic, which really put me off a religion and spiritual path a lot. I think it really kind of moved me away from it. I had a lot of resistance to the word God. And even now, my nervous system reacts when people talk about Jesus and things. Jesus Christ died for our sins and things. I feel my nervous system go, oh no, that reminds me of that lifestyle back then. But my higher awareness obviously doesn't. Shifting a lot of stuff in my body at the moment. A lot of deep going on, doing the Wim Hof method and stuff. But yeah, I realized that praying wasn't a process to follow. It was a very genuine expression of gratitude for something that I still couldn't believe was true. It was remarkable. And I think I saw the contrast between that and what they were doing when I was, what I witnessed in India. Just coming full circle back to your question, how did I feel about it? I was like,
Yeah.
this seems like a process like I used to do at school, and it meant nothing to me when I was doing it at school. Whereas when I did it without realizing it was actually a prayer that I was doing,
Right.
my heart was pulsing, vibrating, beating. My whole body felt electrified. I was emotional. I felt so in awe of the greatness that was taking place, and I just didn't see much of that. I guess that's how I felt. I was like, I wonder if they're kind of missing that a little bit, because it's not a big deal to them. For me, I went from feeling like there was nothing, there was no God, no salvation, no anything in a lot of ways,
Yeah.
to wow, it's something divine has come into my life. And that contrast meant a lot to me. I think it made it go way deeper.
I think that shows a lot of the connection to your own personal path. Like when you find that thing that makes you be able to go into prayer or to feel love or to get the energy moving, or your heart connects to it. It's like that is your path, and you stay with that then as long as until it evolves or something else comes up that does that, maybe encompassing more of it. But it's the same with looking at a lot of different teachings and struggling with some meditations and some continents way how you breathe. How you pray. It's an interesting one that you bring. That's such a good example of how we were taught in schools, and there was nothing there. And even the things that we know now can be so mechanical. While when you find the thing that resonates with you, for myself, a big love for Tibetan Buddhism. Every time I'm at a Tibetan Buddhist temple or I'm doing a practice or reading a book, it's like it just feels right for me. It's just the energies. I mean, I don't exclude any other teachings at all. I've looked at a lot, but it's always something Eastern, like Japanese Zen or Tibetan Buddhism or in India that really captivate me, and I connect so deeply to their teachings that it makes sense that then that's the path I will put my eggs in that basket, staying open. But those teachings connect to me, it wakes things up, and having your own personal experiences, I think that's something why the entheogens, the plant medicines, are so great to give you those feelings. And then moving on from that, breath work and the energy work is showing you that it is all in you and you can activate these feelings regardless of where you're at. It's just what's helping you get to that point of beyond belief and into acceptance, that that this is it. This is the right.
The way that I see that is the entheogens is in, the plant medicines and things, and the toad medicine, that and the breath work. My experiences, they're doing the same thing, and what they're doing is they're flooding the body full of prana. So like when you breathe through very personal and visceral experiences, I'm very aware that your whole body, every single tiny part of your body holds programs, old programs, thoughts, beliefs and ideas that you've had and experiences are all held in the body, right? And when you breathe and breathe and breathe, you're flooding and you're forcing your way back into those rejected parts of yourself. You're forcing the rejected part of yourself to be accessed, which then accesses the unconscious mind where the belief is held, which brings up the memory and cleanses it at the same time. And the plant medicines and stuff and breathwork do exactly the same thing. They flood your body with prana and then show you where the trauma is, access all your traumas. Now, when you re-access a deep trauma that you saw as a negative experience from a very, very spiritual, heightened, energetic point of view, it basically transforms that belief and that experience. You revisit that experience and you see positivity in it because you're not revisiting it from the vibration that it is at. You're revisiting it from a spiritual vibration. And it's like you get this bird's eye view, don't you? You look down on this thing and go, oh my God, I get it. I see now, it was a gift. I needed that to happen in my life so that I could, oh wow, of course. And then you burst into tears and then you laugh out loud and your body shakes a little bit and you feel the muscles in, say, your shoulder or your chest or whatever, just let go a little bit. And you're like, oh, thank God for that. And you just feel your shoulders drop. And that's the same thing, right? It doesn't matter where you're coming from. It doesn't matter which religion, which practice, which you're doing. It's all about that, right? It's about reaching a heightened state, re-accessing the trauma, and then it gets cleansed in that process. Whether it's
there was I think we discussed this in a previous podcast, and I think, Craig, if you remember, I was talking about this monk I was listening to on YouTube, and he was talking about the incompletion patterns. So imagine a tree and imagine the roots. If the roots are the traumas you've experienced and you haven't addressed them, or you felt like you weren't in control, what will happen is they will manifest into this very toxic tree, which the roots will deeply be embedded in your psychology. So whenever you do something, for example, a lot of people that have issues with their parents, issues with their fathers, not having that father figure in their life, that manifests into psychological problems in the way they carry themselves, especially guys. So this incompletion thing is you want to terminate the tree from the roots. So the goal, like you're saying, you want to revisit that. The terminology this monk used was to relive the scenario. Instead of replaying the scenario, like playing it in your head, relive the scenario, enact that entire moment, remember what you were experiencing whilst you were going through that. And most times, once you've found that you are safe now in that environment, so let's say it was a dog chasing you when you were young and that created a fear or a phobia of dogs. Once you're away and it's been maybe like 5 to 10 years or maybe even longer, you're in a safe environment, you've been around multiple other dogs and they've never given you that sort of reaction. You can now relive that scenario and almost complete that pattern, to let go of those sort of incompletion insecurities. So yeah, I found that really interesting, and it's a great way of dealing with certain situations you've gone through. So even the most traumatic situations you've gone through, you want to almost revisit it and relive those situations again as that child, if it happened to you in your childhood.
Yes, in hypnotherapy, because I was trained in hypnotherapy, and so I do see there's a lot of real gold in there. In hypnotherapy is I don't use it much nowadays. I prefer to go more down the guided meditation, which is almost exactly the same, but I use less of the techniques and more just the love that comes through rather than the language patterns. But a little bit I use them, but they call it revivification or regression.
Right.
Regression is when you go back and see it, like you spoke about. And revivification, obviously, viva is like, it means live, is when you relive it. And that's when people can have a really intense, what they call an abreaction. So if someone's being attacked and they're screaming and shouting, but then they cut it off and stifle it down, then when they go back into it, they can finish off that process of screaming, shouting, crying, flailing around, and that's called an abreaction. And then they say never stop somebody when they're having an abreaction, because they might never ever be able to go back in there and actually finish that off, because this might be a once in a lifetime opportunity that they get to go in and actually release that energy. So it's a really, really important point.
Yeah, I experienced that through just doing basic stuff like gymnastics. Like if I've done multiple backflips and I've successfully done them, and then just one backflip done wrong, you've landed on your head, and now what the person that was training me told me is you need to play that again. So in half an hour, you need to do it again, just in case. You don't want to leave that as your last experience of doing a backflip, because then that will be embedded in your brain. So it's get back on the horse. Yeah.
I was just saying as well, this stuff, it works same with other energetic transactions as well. It's not just a trauma install, but when it comes to like forgiveness, like if you have resentment and you've not forgiven, there's an incomplete transaction going on there. Yeah. And both parties are carrying around that energy. We're intertwined. We're part of the same thing. Like I say, everything's agreed. We're connected. Obviously, we know this stuff. But yeah, if you need to forgive someone, it affects both parties. And the amount of times I hear that story, someone forgave somebody from 5 years ago, and then the day after, the person they've not spoke to for 5 years rings them up, or they see them in the street and things are okay again. And it's like, I hear this time and time again. So, I mean, yeah, for anyone who's listening as well, that's just a really cool thing to know, a really useful thing to know, is clear up your incomplete transactions in all ways. Like you were just saying, whether it's a trauma to go back and revisit, or whether it's, like someone to forgive, something to let go of, something to be thankful for as well. Again, gratitude. If you have a feeling of debt, like you've received more than you've given, then you need to be saying thank you. You need to access that vibration to complete that transaction. Otherwise, you're going to feel indebted, and then you're going to get more debt in your life. You're going to manifest more debt. And the same thing goes for. I mean, I'm speaking first-hand experience in that. I've amassed a lot of debt from having that feeling of debt. When I was in India, a spiritual teacher told me that from past lives I acknowledged my gurus, my teachers, and so I was carrying debt, which resonated when I said it. It resonated quite deeply. And obviously, if you've given more than you've received, the people pleasing thing, you need to then forgive people for not giving you back. Complete the transaction always. Yeah, it's a really, really big point. Is that you mentioned that?
Yeah, Hinduism mentions that as karma. You're giving back someone else's karma. Where someone's done you ill will and you have no ill will towards them, that's basically you returning their karma back to them. But what usually happens is we take on the board of other people's karma. So, you know, like the best example is when you have a really bad breakup and let's say the person's cheated on you and you haven't forgiven them for that. You're basically, by forgiving them for that, you're forgiving yourself and you're returning that karma that belongs to them back to them. So you're not burdened by that. If you believe in past and future lives, you're not burdened by that in your future life. So yeah, I think that ties in with what the guru said to you about your past life. You had karma from not being not acknowledging these gurus almost.
And debt is debt. It doesn't matter what you apply it to, does it? It can be financial, it can be spiritual, it can be emotional, it can be psychological, whatever, you know. Debt's debt. And for me, it did manifest financially, big time, when I was in my mid-20s. So yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And I do have this feeling of this compulsion still now. I still have this compulsion to serve. And, you know, I say it's not what you do, it's the place it comes from. It's coming from love, but at the same time, there's also a part of me that feels obliged to. I'm very aware there's a part of me still feels very obliged to do it. Like I'd feel guilty to just sit and draw pictures rather than to share this stuff. Does that make sense? So just be aware of these things as well, you know. So there's still that feeling of debt going on. There still is there. There's still more work to be done in that area for sure.
Yeah, nice. Craig, you've gone silent.
No, I'm just listening, man. Yeah, I think it's like not just the obvious transactions, but the micro transactions that we have in between, not just the world, but within ourselves. You know, listening to what you're saying there and doing the people pleasing aspect for a long time. You know, and I'd always feel that I couldn't settle or accept. Or even to accept things was difficult at a point. I was like, oh no, you know, it's something I think we've mentioned on here as well, Chet and Mickey, we would have definitely spoke about it, but the unworthiness of not feeling that it's good enough and always trying to push things out there. So in that aspect was, you think, I thought I was doing the right thing by always trying to give and push out. But I think we've always got to look at the scale, haven't we? Which side are we currently on? And are we balancing something? Or are we pushing ourselves further and further away by staying in those habits that we're so familiar with? How would you, or what tool would you use to catch yourself doing that, Mickey? How would you become aware of this process?
Yeah, fear or love, isn't it? It's fear or love. What am I expecting in return? That's what it is. What am I expecting? Exactly what Chet said earlier. Like, what am I wanting in return? If I'm doing it purely for the love of doing it, it's coming from the right place. You know, just it's like, say, you know, you talk about selfless service. I'm very much in the space now of just win-win. Just make sure that everyone's happy. Like I don't want to be the martyr. Martyrdom is a very subtle trap that people will fall into. Martyrdom, and you can only share the vibration that you're at. You know, so if you're the martyr and you're suffering to try and make someone else feel good, you are sharing the vibration of suffering with that person.
Yeah, 100%.
So unless you're really, really happy and pleased with yourself for suffering for that person, then you're sharing a good vibration because you're glad you're suffering, you're happy to be suffering, and it makes you feel good to suffer. Then that kind of transcends the act of the suffering itself. But if you're not, and you're just doing it because you're trying to get enlightenment or whatever, and this is what you've been told is the path is serving others selflessly is the path to liberation, and so you do it, but really you're not enjoying it, but you're after this thing. It's not going to work, is it? It's not going to serve anyone. So yeah, I mean, for me, if I light up doing the thing, then I'm like, that's why I'm doing it, and it will always serve someone else if I light up doing it. It always does. I don't know if that's a universal rule. I honestly don't. But for me, if I'm really, really loving doing something, the people around me are generally in a good mood. they're genuinely benefiting, the learning or the feeling better about themselves or something positive's taking place. It's a vibrational thing.
They're using art as a good example of that, man. It's like you'll see that bit of art that you've drawn or painted or you know, whatever it is that we're creating, and it's just like, wow, that's great, you know, and this person sat there and done that, they've drawn that, and it's amazing. That's why art sells for millions of pounds, you know, in galleries. It does things to you, and that person has just sat down and gone, this is what I want to do, because it switches me on, it makes me feel good. I'm just going to create and get this out, or I'm just going to write this thing, or I'm going to do this video or sing this song, whatever it is. And it's a charm, isn't it? It's mesmerizing. People love to see it. People love to see something that's from you.
Talked about this before, haven't we? About like, we'll put out some absolute gold, like life-changing information, and you can read it in, you know, a minute, and 4 people will press like, and and someone will go, you know, thumbs up. How are you doing, mate? Not seen you for a while, right? And then I'll put out a picture that I drew, and there's like 200-300 people all dropping comments in it, and it's like, that's not useful to you, but it's sharing the vibration that it was drawn with, and they're receiving the vibration from doing that, you know. So this is what I mean. If I really enjoy doing something, like sometimes writing a post, I enjoy it, but it's short-lived. It's like, oh yeah, I'll write this. It only takes me 2-3 minutes to write it. The vibration has not a chance to load. You know, there's that viral load. They talk about the COVID-19, the viral load. You can have more of the virus if you've been exposed to more people who have it, so it can be stronger and more intense. If I've spent 30 hours drawing a picture versus spending 5 minutes or whatever writing a post, there's an obvious reason why people go, wow, to that thing and not to the other. You know, they can feel the vibration and the investment that's gone into it. And, you know, I think that's a really important thing for us to recognize, really, is that when we're in our highest vibration, that serves everybody. And to do that is normally in serving others, like you said.
Yeah, I just want to add to that. So it's interesting you mentioned that, where you, compared to spending 30 hours drawing something or doing it in 5 minutes, you know, both could be equally as important as each other. But then the response you'll receive from it, I think people on social media fall into the trap of, so let's say you put a post up and it's informative and you've not got the likes and you've not got the attention that you wanted. I feel like a lot of people on social media almost play to the lower consciousness level. So they start to post pictures that are quite almost revealing, just so that it attracts the attention. Then you read the information. But what usually happens is people will dismiss the information, look at the post and like it for the picture itself and not for the information you've provided. So you might have catered for the lower conscious or the lower self, but you haven't still delivered the message. But you've looked at the likes and thought, oh, I've got like 1,000 likes for that, so I should pursue doing it this way. Give people the information and encrypt it, but give it in a way that caters for their lower selves. But I just think that approach is, again, it's tainted with insecurity and attachment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can see that. Do you mean if you're attached to the response that things get that you put out?
Well, yeah. So you're attached to a level where you're doing it for the right reason. You want people to. You've received this information. It's benefited you, and you want to send it out for people to benefit off. But then you realize that they're not going to read it all. The response that they've given to you on your previous one that you've done, the thing that you've done, they haven't given you the response that you wanted. They haven't kind of embraced that information. So you try and cater it and you try and change it in a different way. It's almost like packaging it in a way where people will latch onto it. It's like a clickbait almost. So you go with a clickbait approach to it. And I feel like a lot of spiritual people on social media will tend to do that. They realize the information they've started off doing it in a very pure way. Oh, this information I've learned is benefiting me. I want to give it out to the people. But then they've realized that people haven't accepted it in the right way or the way they wanted it to be accepted.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And there's a place for that. If somebody's come to you for therapy or coaching or something, then there's a definite place for that. But I know what you're saying, when you put it out there, it loses what we were saying earlier, that it becomes almost a very mild form of manipulation in a way. But yeah, I know, like if it's a one-to-one session, there's a big place for meeting the person where they're at. So you ask them the questions, and then you'll obviously speak to them in a language that they're going to understand to get the point across. So I always say, like, we all have these barriers and coping mechanisms and walls around us to protect us. And if you're wanting to work with somebody one-to-one specifically, you're looking for the chinks in the armor, the access points, so you can get in and actually help that person. Because otherwise they're just going to get negate. They just negate everything that you give them. And they won't say it a lot of the time, you know. They're just like, oh yeah, and they nod along, and inside they're going, nope. And in hypnotherapy, we call it bribing the guards. You've got to bribe the guards, right? So it's like the conscious mind is hypervigilant. It doesn't want to let that trauma be accessed underneath. And so to bribe them, you can either relax them, which is why some like meditation is that you're bribing the guards via relaxation in meditation. So that's how you bribe the guards in meditation. In conversational hypnosis, something else that I'm trained in is you confuse the person as well. You can overload them with so much information that the conscious mind goes, and it goes offline, and then everything goes into the unconscious.
Right.
You can confuse them by using awkward language, so they have to like double negatives and things and triple negatives, and start going, hang on, how do I figure that out? And then at that moment, the conscious mind goes offline, you get access to the unconscious. And there's many ways of doing it. The other one is you speak the words back to the person that they've said. You keep doing that. They say something, you say the same thing back to them in the same way. And the guards go, you're speaking my language, I'll let you in, and you get in there. And
right.
So there's ways of doing it, but the goal is to get into the unconscious, right? But yeah, it doesn't work on a social media post. It will for some people. If it meets them with their buzzwords, like they're suffering from social anxiety, and that word's in there and it's the buzzword, that's me, and their ears pick up and they listen. But yeah, I honestly don't think social media is the best way just for putting out messages, but it plants seeds, doesn't it? I think that's what it is. Like when you plant seeds and someone goes, I like that meme, I'll share that. Someone else goes, that's a cool one, I'll share that. And then it spreads across, and suddenly social media is filling up with people that have got this ever so slightly altered perception. You know, it's like, let's say one of them might be, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And people go, that's clever, I like that. And it gets shared out. That's gone into the unconscious. So even, the unconscious sees everything. It doesn't give you access all the time, but it sees everything. Like this is one of the sort of the fundamentals of understanding in hypnosis is that the unconscious knows way more. If you hurt yourself, like even if a dog runs at you and knocks you over, you could have avoided that. Your unconscious knows exactly what's going on all around you at all times. You could have avoided it, but if you fell over and hurt your wrist, it's because the wrist represents an aspect of life, and you hurting that, you are showing yourself something to learn from, to remember who you are. And so let's not underestimate how much the unconscious can take in, so when we do share these things on social media, something is happening. It's altering consciousness in some way a little bit. When enough people do it, we hit that tipping point then, don't we? I don't know if you've read that book, The Tipping Point, but I guess you know what that is anyway. But the tipping point when things start to change, there's an energy change, and in this case it'd be from fear to love, or from the old way to the new way, the old perspective to that little thing where that just casts a little bit of doubt. It just comes up 20 years down the line. That's what that thing meant when, I get that saying now. They always got that saying on some level. They were just waiting, it set the reticular activating system, the perceptual filters to start noticing things slightly differently. So it does the work, yeah. Whether it gets the reach that you think it's getting, it does the work. And like you said, let's not be attached to the response that we get, and just keep putting it out for the love of doing that.
Definitely. Yeah, I think this is why these long form conversations are so important, because you've baited them, now they need something as a follow-up. And I feel a lot of people, it's great you're setting out a bait there, but you don't have anything to follow up with. You haven't really thought about what to follow up with. And maybe it's out of fear. A lot of people are scared of sharing their thoughts, almost because they don't want to hurt the following they've created. They've taken, it's taken a lot of effort to create that following. And if you say something that's dismissive of someone in that following, you almost feel like you are letting people down. And I've seen a lot of people, and Craig will tell you, like a lot of our colleagues, they will cater for that and almost change their mentality to overserve those people. So I think we need to be very conscious of being true to who we are, putting the message out there, if you have to clickbait them, but then provide a nuanced perspective. So don't just talk about it as just black and white. Give them a wider perspective. And I think the more people you bring on board onto that, the better off everyone else will be.
Yes. And it's like you say, I mean, I'm still on the fence with how crucial it actually is to spread the message, or do we just raise our vibration and go play with everyone? Could that be way more powerful? Like all these programs that we have in place, right, are to survive and to get love, which are kind of the same thing to a baby, because if they're not loved, then they're neglected and then they won't survive, right? So by providing the vibration of love, unconditional love to somebody, automatically heals them. I think Carl Jung said the same thing. He says like no healing takes place in the absence of love. Like love needs to be part of that equation. Otherwise, you know, all the cerebral know-hows and manipulation techniques in the world won't heal somebody if there's not love present. And it's because all these programs that we're aiming to transcend and move beyond and let go of, however you want to phrase that, are designed to get love. So what we can do is we can literally just offer a more profound version of love than what the brain is trying to get, which is what mum and dad showed me love looks like. It's not real love, it's emotional love by two often unconscious people, like unconscious loving people, if you like. And so what we can do is maybe, I believe, raise our vibration by doing our own work and then go offer that new vibration of love to people and just let it soak in. Maybe we don't have to share anything. Maybe just sharing the vibration itself is done automatically. I don't know. What I have been shown in visions is that the work we do does carry our vibration. So if you're a musician or a writer or an artist or whatever it is, a dancer, when people are witnessing your creation, when people are in the presence of your creation, they're soaking up the vibration that you're at. So I think that's it. That is a lot of spiritual people are very artistically gifted. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, definitely.
I think that shows a lot of the importance as well, is whatever you're doing, do it fully, do it in your heart and doing it from your point of truth, because that will carry the effect that will have, as we mentioned earlier, with intention. You know, if we're coming from the right place, from the heart, beaming it out, people are going to feel it. You know, and that's where these connections and the people we meet, like us knowing each other and other people who we met, our partners, it all just works off where our frequency's at. So the more we're doing the frequency of love and keeping our energy high, that could just well do the message much better than social media. I think it's an interesting thing to consider, that, Mickey. It's a good point.
Let's go play nights out, days out, go see people, visit people, and just keep sharing. I think, I don't know if I've heard this, but they say like your happiness can be pretty much directly equated to the quality of your relationships. Makes sense, doesn't it? So if you're raising your vibration, going out and offering people this real high vibrational relationship, how can that not affect them? You know, how can they not get something from that?
Yeah, definitely. Right, I think Craig, you're going really dark in that room. What's going on?
There's a light going.
We can just about see. But yeah, so
let's branch that into the situation that we're in right now with the whole lockdown procedure. You know, I've seen a lot of posts and a lot of people just complaining and waiting for the days to return to normal. But I feel like people are missing a trick here. This is the best time right now. You're sat at home. You know, you're getting paid to sit at home for a lot of people that are furloughed. You're getting paid to sit at home. It's a great opportunity to almost delve into these sort of areas of your mind and just the unconscious, you know?
Yeah, big time. That's exactly what I've been doing. I think us guys could easily fall into the trap of telling people that if they're not doing that, they're doing it wrong. It's not an obligation, no pressure. Because really, these people might have been working their ass into the ground for 25 years and they might really need to sit and do absolutely naff all for
nothing.
A little while. And it's so easy for us to go, come on, you kept saying you had all these ideas. If you're not doing it, then it were all just excuses and you're not real and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, sometimes your nervous system just needs to just open up, let go. But yeah, for anyone who feels pulled, it's a massive opportunity, isn't it? Wow, what an opportunity. I mean, I've put myself through the mill a little bit. All sorts coming up. I've really discovered some real lifelong childhood patterns from when I was a baby, before I could talk and stuff like that. So much come up. But I mean, I love that. If someone doesn't love doing that, then yeah, don't do it. It's an opportunity to shift our perspectives around how to react to a virus, though, right? What about this, right? Breath work. It's got two really, really, really crucial functions, right? One of them sends your immune system through the roof. The next one, it evolves us spiritually. It gives us a way intensified spiritual connection. So I'm looking at the Wim Hof method or various other breathwork stuff, right? And then there's this virus that comes along that attacks the lungs. And so, and then there's this thing saying, if you really want to improve your immune system from this virus and to make yourself immune to it, there's one way to do it that's scientifically proven now due to the man Wim Hof. You can do this. And then people go, oh, well, I'm at home and I can get this program online and follow it. Spiritual awakenings happening all over the planet. Could this virus have come to get people breathing consciously? You know, so there's always something bigger at play, right? Consciousness is evolving at all times.
There's a prophecy in Hinduism that says that we are now entering, we're in the transition phase from the Dark Age to the Bronze Age. So it's now working in reverse. So we go from obviously the gold, silver, bronze, and then the Dark Age, the Stone Age, or the Iron Age. And now we're going backwards. So we don't start again from the Golden Age. We work ourselves back up again. So we're in this transitory phase where we're going back to the Bronze Age. So our consciousness is becoming more, is raising in vibration. So, and it's something I talked to one of my clients about last night, and I said, it's this opportunity right now that we're having right now. It's a very unique thing that's going on. People are becoming more aware. More people are participating in these practices. And like you said, thanks to Wim Hof, a lot of people enter the realms of spirituality and spiritual practice through these breathing techniques. So it can only do us good. It can only do us good. In terms of the entire population, in terms of where we are consciously, how we are dealing with the planet as well. A lot of people are waking up to the reality that, half of our lungs are out there. The trees are our lungs. So for us to cut down the trees and to cut down nature, it's just hurting us more. So yeah, it's a really interesting phase that we're in. And it's amazing that we are living through this because, not many people get to live through the transition phase from one age to the next age. And we're living through it right now. We're in the heart of it.
I think that's why we came.
That's why we came into this age. Yeah.
If you listen to the work of Dolores Cannon, do you know who she is? The quantum healing hypnosis technique, I think.
Okay.
I think I've got that right. QHHT, if anyone wants to look at it. Dolores Cannon has been hypnotizing, or she's passed away now. She hypnotized thousands of people and regressed them. Now, what was happening is they were remembering between lives. She'd managed to access a part of the brain that knew everything about all the past lives. So she was taking, and they were all saying the same thing, that they came to Earth now to be part of this huge transformation. And they were telling her about the first, second, and third wave of people, the DNA upgrades, and people coming from all different sort of dimensions, planets, and things like that to all be part of this huge awakening.
Wow.
Strange that pattern emerged. I mean, thousands of people, they're talking about Atlantis and things like that, which I just always thought were a fairy tale, but who knows, lots of people talking about the same thing and talking about how it was run with using energy crystals for energy and things like that. So that's why I say, can see why we came here now. It's an exciting time to be here, but I feel like we're the volunteers. I think we call them the volunteers, don't they?
Yeah.
You just said something a minute ago that sparked off. What was the last thing you said?
About the transition phase between two ages.
Yeah. What do you think of the fact that maybe we're going from the age of information? Because now we're in the information age, aren't we? I think it's known as the information age. I feel like we're moving beyond information. For me personally, and I don't know if I'm just projecting. I mean, we're always projecting to some extent, right? But I feel like now the information, it's like the last phase leads us to the next one. And then the last one becomes redundant because it's been replaced with something that's more useful or more of a catalyst for evolution. And I really feel like the information now with your Joe Dispenzas and Greg Braden and Bruce Lipton, and then there's a lot of spiritual teachers, but the science side of it as well, all coming together. And it's like the information now is leading us to compassion, heart-centered living from the heart, living simply. Like this fear and love. And I've been going through this process for quite a few months now, about 6 months or so. This process of everything becoming really simple, just seeing things in terms of vibration. Is it vibe up or down? Is it love? Is it fear? And realizing how much easier life is when we just eradicate all the nonsense. I know we've been talking about concepts and things like that, and I think there's definitely a place for that, but that will come into your life based on the vibration you're at. You don't need to go looking for that stuff. Keep raising your vibration, don't you? Just lift your vibration, eat the right foods, exercise, think positive thoughts, connect with people, feel love, have a meditation or a practice that suits you, meditation, breath work, whatever it is. Do the stuff and your vibration's going to go up, and then the right thing will enter your life that you need at the right time. Someone will come into your life and deliver the right thing at the right time. Oh, there's something called shadow work. Do you know what it is? No, I don't know what it is. Oh, I'll tell you about it. Could be a guy down at the pub. You know, I've been that guy talking to other people about it, and they've gone, wow. And then I've seen them 6 months later and they've said, that thing you said really sunk in, and blah, 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 blah. And they must have been at that vibrational point where they were just ready to receive that thing. And life used me to be the delivery man for that thing at that point. And let's simplify everything. Let's work with energy. Like, that's Craig's baby, innit? That energy, that's what you work with. It's the way forward, man. Energy, vibration, simplicity. It could all this information all now just be pointing us towards that. Okay, let's let go of the nonsense now. Let's start living simply from the heart. That sounds
man. I agree. I think from my own experience too, is filling the head up so much is great. You know, it can give you those understandings, but intellect can only take us so far because we are holistic. It's funny they mention it. I was watching Doctor Strange with Abs last night, and there's a quote in that. He's like a surgeon, a spinal surgeon, so like top of his game, and he's very egotistical, and he has this big accident and goes on this spiritual journey. There's a point when he's got this guru, this teacher, and she says to him, you know, your intellect made you think that you've achieved everything, but your intellect, it gave you a great understanding, but it's only took you as far as it can go. It's not going to get you any further. It can't do anything else for you other than make you think now that you know everything or that you're the best. And for me, that gave the teaching that once you've achieved that, go into your heart, go into the emotions. Or for other people, it can be the other way around. It might be very emotive and not use much logical reasoning or understanding. So it is always the balance. But this being the age of information, I would agree with what you've said, is we've got the science to prove all the spiritual or mystical or self-healing elements that were once upon a time, you know, only achieved by yogis in mountains or by monks who've dedicated so much to it. And now we have the science to measure it and go, look, it's legitimate. This is how it works. You can do it too. Like, everybody can do it. You just need to do that. And then once that is established in society, like, to be living that way and to be passing that on to younger generations who will be brought up with those methods and with that understanding of life and with that balance, incredible.
I mean, look at how it's all pieced together, like such a perfect jigsaw. It's like we're in a very patriarchal world at the moment. It's cerebral, it's logical. So we needed the information to get us to move into the heart, because, you know, your average man's not going to buy into it. They're like, no, I need the science. I need the hard facts. I'm not living, you know, we've spoke about living from the heart for God knows how long, but there was just no science to show that there was actual neurons in there and that it was a brain, and, you know, and then at the same time, so we've got the patriarchal thing and the teaching and the teaching logically about the heart and the information age. We've got loads of people with massive levels of anxiety at the moment and depression. So they're like looking for answers, and their only answers really are going to be for them to learn to go into the feelings and feel the way through it. And when they feel the way through it, they're going to start to heal everything. And as they heal it, they become an energy of healing. So everywhere they're going, healing is happening, right? It's not like I'm healing me or you're healing you or whatever. It's like I am a healing energy because I'm healing me. So therefore, we're automatically healing each other. So for that to happen, like the virus is showing us exactly perfectly how life works. You know, when we contact people, it rubs off. Everything rubs off. It's come at the perfect time to show us that. Imagine all these people struggling with the younger generation, especially that are being called snowflakes in like a derogatory way. But it's like, when they learn to feel through that and heal it, these people have big hearts. They're very empathic. and they can feel other people's pain. You know, this is a thing that's going on, that empath, that buzzword. So they've gone through and they've healed it in themselves, and they can feel other people's pain. Then they're like, I can help you. And they want to help that person because they're big-hearted, open-hearted people. They've been born with certain gifts that the older generation potentially haven't got right now, which is the increased sensitivity to empathy. So that's happened at the same time. The virus has happened at the same time. So all these light workers, if you want to give it that name, it's totally open to debate. I bet that is rejected by a lot of people, that word. But people who are on this journey, who want to help other people, who want to share that vibration. And, you know, I'm seeing it all over social media. It's like, we've been training for this, guys. Let's do it. Let's do what we've been training to do. And that resonates with me. I feel like I get goosebumps now just talking about it. But I really do feel like that's like, why did I put myself through the mill in such a rush? And then this happened. That makes sense now. Hence the free retreats that we're doing, the free online retreats. But people all over the world are doing it. They're sharing as much as they can for free, whilst we have a very literal captive audience. You know, they're in the house, they're bored. Not only that, mate, like, look at how glued everyone's been to the screens, to the phones, to the computers. That's happened at exactly the right time for them to be locked in the house, glued to a screen, for them other people to start flooding those screens with messages of, oh, your immune system's bad. Try this breathing thing. Try this meditation thing. Try this, which automatically evolves people spiritually. Like, all the conditions are immaculate. It's so put together so well. And we needed the discomfort. You need the anxiety to go put yourself through the healing process so that you have the ability to share that, you know, and so on and so on. Like, you can see every element of that has come together so perfectly. But obviously people have to die at the same time, which is where the spiritual journey comes in. You're like, there ain't really such a thing as death. Everything's agreed. Everyone's come here to play their note and be exactly who they were. They've done it exactly right. They've influenced everybody in the exact way that every other soul wanted and asked to be influenced in that life, to get their soul where they wanted to be. You know, this is all just one big, beautiful interaction, a cosmic, universal interaction where there's no mistakes, there can't be. You know, and it's like, it's all playing out divinely as far as I can see. And I know people are passing away, but at the same time, we will be reunited with those one day if they're in our spirit family, and they mean a lot to us. You know, we're all going back to the same place. And I know a dear friend of ours had a family member pass away very recently, which is heartbreaking. And I don't want these words to hurt anybody, but to realise that there's so much more. The soul goes on, you know, life goes on. I've had very, very real experiences of that. I've met my soul family in spirit form in the afterlife. They operated on my body and gave me this awakening, and, you know, I know it to be true. And like, I can't promise anybody. Everyone's on their own journey, and maybe their journey is not to have that experience, but life goes on beyond this, and there's something divine at play, and we can really see that from a bird's eye view, can't we, with the right eyes.
Yeah, definitely. So you just touched on your online retreat. I know that the group's been live for the last month or so. You've done your first one. It was really successful. You guys are doing another one. Do you want to talk briefly about that and what it's all about?
Heart-based living. Again, it's like helping people find that connection. So we're going to talk a little bit about the science and, you know, the research that HeartMath are doing at the HeartMath Institute, if anyone doesn't know what that is. We're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk about the sort of yogic side of it. And we're going to do the Buddhist meditation, so coming out from a few Eastern philosophies and practices as well. And we are also going to be doing workshops. And we've got somebody talking about, I believe, vulnerability and, you know, the heart and opening it and letting people understand what an open and a closed heart actually is. And each person who's speaking, each facilitator, practitioner that's going to be there is on the journey, deep into the journey themselves, all with a spiritual aspect. But some people will be coming at it more from the scientific and cerebral point as well. And some people will just be more about, let's do some chanting, let's listen to some singing bowls, let's do this guided meditation. But I really, this was a calling. This came up as a calling. Craig and I had a conversation, didn't we, mate, on the phone, and I was saying there's a lot of people now suffering with mental health, and I want them to realize that what's trying to happen is they're having a spiritual awakening and they're resisting it. The spirit is screaming at them to listen or whatever, and they're resisting it, and that's where the pain's coming from. And then we said it'd be nice to make a little group for those suffering and drop things in to help them. And then Craig said something like, "Oh, we could do like a retreat, like a retreat online," and that was it, wasn't it? And then we started the retreat. And literally, when he said that, everything in me lit up. My partner, everything in her lit up, and we're like, "Yeah, we're doing it." And we basically put it together within 2 days, organized it and stuff. It fell together, which shows that it was a very divine construction. Everyone who is involved said, "Yep, I'll be part of that. I don't want paying for that. I'll volunteer. I'll gladly." Everything worked perfectly on the day. It just fell into place. It was amazing. And this second one, the heart-based thing, is a bit of a calling. Like I had this sort of vision of moving from the information age into the heart-based, the heart center. And that's why this one's about the heart. It's really to help people realize and know more about that.
Okay. Do you want to talk about when it is and how people get involved?
9th of May, 9 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. UK time.
Yeah.
And it's going to be Zoom software, which is free. And we can hold at the moment up to 500 people. We know it's going to keep growing. The feedback we got last time was incredible. Lives were changed, lives were touched, relationships were, friendships were made, and it grew. We're going to tailor to everybody. We're going to try and cater to everybody and come at it from mind, body, spirit, and emotional, psychological, energetical, and physical, come at it from all angles. And all you need to do is go on the Transformation Decode. I'll say this, I don't know if we can drop a link or something, but we call it Transformation Decoded, which is part of Craig and mine's group, Reality Decoded. So on Facebook, Reality Decoded, Release Yourself.
Right.
About releasing your true self. Reality Decoded, Release Yourself. And then our retreats are Transformation Decoded. So if you put that into Facebook, you'll be able to find the event and the group as well for the aftercare and stuff like that. So
we're on our Instagrams as well, Mickey.
And it's on the Instagram. In fact, you'll know more. You're more active on Instagram than me.
Oh, we're our tags are on the podcast release, so anyone can just click on our link and find it through us on Instagram as well.
Yeah, and I'll put all the links in, so I'll put your Instagram details and your Facebook details on the description as well.
Awesome. So, it is a free event. I've offered for people if they want to pay a donation, if they want to put a donation in for one of the practitioners or for the group or whatever, then they're welcome to do that. And again, it's like we just spoke about this completing transactions. It's such a big deal. Like this was a bit of a psychologist shift for me, and I still forget from time to time. But when you buy something, instead of thinking, "Oh, I have to pay for that," but to hand that money over and go, "Thank you for giving me this. Thank you. I want to give you something back in return, and this is what I'm going to give you, so you can go get something." That energy transference, it goes a long way. And people do value what they pay for. And I'm not saying this to try and get anybody to pay for it, because what we want is, we've said we'd rather have no donations and 500 people in there than 20 people and £1,000 in donation. What matters to us is the reach. It's getting it out there. Donation is just a nice way for them to say thank you, and for the other people to experience the appreciation in a way that suits them as well. They can go spend that on their business to then create more waves. And I bet pretty much every practitioner, with their wealth that they accumulate, are reinvesting it into their cause, their life purpose, their mission, their business. Of course, why wouldn't we? It's what we care about more than anything, isn't it? So
100%.
But yeah, I would. There's absolutely no pressure. So if free is good, I want people to join. We do. We want to grow it as much as we can. We want to show people that that we care, that people care, that there's easy, simple ways of changing your life. We want to simplify it. It's a very complicated arena. My partner was saying this to me last night, actually. She was saying it can be a bit overfacing, the personal spiritual development, especially because I've been sort of doing it for a few years, and she's kind of new to it. And she's like, it just seems like there's all these concepts that you speak about, And it's like, yeah, it's true. Let's simplify it as much as we possibly can. And what easier way than, you know, breathing in a certain way, feeling's easier than thinking. You know, feeling, just feel. You don't have to, there's nothing to work out, nothing to figure out, nothing to be right about. You just feel and just let that be the case, you know, and then breathe. You know, just let it do its thing, and let's simplify it as much as possible. Yeah, for sure. And thanks for that as well, for offering us the opportunity to share that, because we want to get it out to many people. We're going to visit the other chakras as well. It's going to be very much about visiting holistic, the whole body, coming from all angles, but also all the chakras as well, and emotion and psychological, how to deal with the mind, the monkey mind, how to deal with emotions and things like that.
Nice. I think Craig mentioned it to me a while ago, saying, you know, do you want to be a part of it? And I said, I'll kind of ride the wave, see what it's like, see how people are dealing with it, and seeing if it's based on the stuff I want to teach. Like, you know, there's certain sort of topics you want to focus each of the retreats on, main sort of themes. And if it comes back to a theme that resonates with me, I'll definitely get involved. And my form of therapy is mainly stretch therapy. So using the method of stretching to release tension in the body, to understand where this tension is coming from, and to almost become, you see the physical benefits are you become more flexible, but you get a deep sense of relaxation. So it's just going into that part of it as well. So yeah, it's definitely really interesting what you guys do.
I really look forward to collaborating with you on that, for sure.
Yeah.
It's really important. I've had very, very, real experience of understanding how the body is put together, and it is put together by our programs. And to release the tension from the body gives us access to the corresponding program in the mind, so we can undo it from the body part as well. You know, as long as we surrender to what's coming up, feel it. If we stretch and resist the feeling, it's no good. It's not, you know, it's not going to stay stretched. It's going to keep going back. And I'm very aware of that. The body is very important. I had a very, what do you make of this? Doing the Wim Hof method and the stretches. What I realized was, have you ever seen that thing with Velcro? You get Velcro, right? Stick it together like that. And if you pull it that way, you can like tow a car. It's really strong. But you can just peel it off with two fingers like that. Now, what I've realized with the muscles is it's the same thing. When we undo the programs, peel it off and the muscle stretches. But if we just try and stretch, it's like trying to pull the Velcro like that, which is where the holistic journey comes in. And what I've found is the best way to unhook it, to peel it off like that, is the breath.
Yeah, my mentor, Kit Lachlan, talks about the same thing. He said that stretching, actually, most of stretching is actually about 80% of it is in the mind and only 20% physical. The reason why you're not able to get into like maybe a middle split or a pancake is because you've got all these barriers set in place. It's your mind, your conscious mind and your unconscious mind telling you that you can't get to that range, and it's a protective mechanism. So he said there were studies. So his colleague in Austria, or I think it was Germany, he performed studies on people under local anesthesia, and realized that when someone's under, you know, has got a lack of consciousness, and you switch the conscious mind off, you can bend that person in any direction you want. And as soon as the consciousness is restored, so once they come off the local anesthesia, they're back to normal again. You know, they've got all those restrictions again.
Yeah, thanks for telling me that. I like that you've just said that. I have wondered this before, if our flexibility is there when we're completely unconscious. So I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah, there's studies to show that. So yeah,
I was mentioning it just yesterday. I got out of a bath, and I'm quite new to the stretching yoga side. I've been very much about emotional intelligence and living in the moment and making heart-based decisions. And it's come full circle now. I've come back to the physical stuff, and I'm opening the body up, right? And so flexibility is a new thing to me, but I'm gaining it quite well and quite quickly. And it's just little things like when I'm getting dried after a bath, realizing like I would lean over to dry my feet, and I was like, oh, and I feel my hamstrings go and tense up, and I'm like, oh, hang on a minute, I'm flexible now, I forgot. And then I just switched it from feeling my hamstrings to drying my foot, and my hamstrings, there was no sensation, completely open. But the mind immediately, it expected the tightness to be there and put it there.
Yeah, it's called the apprehensive reflex.
Yeah, perfect. That's exactly what it feels like, an apprehensive reflex. I had it another time in an ayahuasca ceremony as well, when when I went back into the womb and stuff and relived being born and all that. But then it was, I relived the installation of all my patterns and programs, like in reverse at warp speed. And I could just feel all the programs disappearing, just being removed from my body. And at one point it had me stand up. The energy that was took over had me stood up, and it was trying to get me to bend over and touch my toes, and it was going, stop expecting. It was like like a thought loop. You're expecting stiffness, let go. And every time I could focus enough to let go of the expectation that it was going to hurt and be stiff, I'd drop down about 3 inch, and then again it'd do it again and again, and eventually I had the flexibility, and there was no stretching involved. It was just the release of the programs that believed that it was tight.
I had a similar experience with ayahuasca. So I think it was like the third night, and I was just sat down, drank it. It wasn't like a lot either. It didn't blast me off straight away, but it was very, very about the body. And same with tight hamstrings, hips, and central mid back, always really stiff. And I could just reach down and grab my toes, like no effort, nothing required. It just went straight there. It just gives pause for question, doesn't it? Like, if you can do that just by taking a drink or something, why is it happening when you alter your state of consciousness? Why is it so stiff generally all the time? And an example I've used before in our groups, Mickey, but when I was doing a lot of yoga and exercise with strength training and weights, it was a nice combination. And my flexibility when getting into yoga got such to a level it'd never been before, but I could never get it past a certain point for like that whole year. And it was only through seeing the connections, through emotional letting go and letting go mentally of blocks, would my flexibility then change. And it's amazing to know that is the occurrence of how our body is. It's a result from the internal energy that we've got, and the framework that we're holding on to is leading to our shell, our avatar, our body being tight and representing it in every sense of the word.
It's a manifestation of our inner resistance, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, imagine when you're a kid, you get told off a lot, right? Mum or dad says, stop doing that, don't do that, put that down, blah, 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 blah. So you become apprehensive, right? You become, oh, am I allowed to touch that? And you hesitate. That's what inflexibility is. You're using the opposing muscles to the ones you're supposed to be using to do the job. So it's like part of you is moving into something, and the other part of you is pulling back, going, can I do that? And that is very, very literally what inflexibility is, isn't it? So let's say to stretch your hamstrings, tense your quads, and your hamstrings will let go because they kind of have to some extent. But the amount that they're holding on is the amount of resistance you have to moving forward into, I say, being yourself, into being your full, authentic soul expression of you. And all inflexibility is that resistance manifest. And once we are fully in our flow, remember, Craig, when we did that retreat, and I was like, I just became really flexible. At that retreat, I could put my legs in the lotus position, and I couldn't actually do that normally. But it's because I was in my element, doing what I really feel I came here to do. And I've noticed that when I'm doing something I really love to do, my flexibility goes through the roof. Another little thing, mate, I'd like to share that has come to me in, again, experiences during Kriyas and stuff like that. Is the programs in the muscle, or the muscle is programmed with the mindset that put it there. Let me put this, I'll tell you exactly what happened and it'll make more sense. When I was younger, my knees used to turn a little bit, like they're called K-legged or knock-kneed, where your knees are in and your feet come out a little bit at the bottom.
Yeah.
And to me, that was just the anti-cool, right? That was the opposite of cool. And what mattered to me was I needed to be cool, because that way people wouldn't bully me and then I'd be safe, right? I needed to be kind of cool. That's what it was at the school I was at. And I was like, I can't have those legs. So at a very young age, what I started to do was walk on the outside of my feet, thinking that over time, what that would do is bring them in. Now, what I've actually done is my shins are slightly bowed. My shins are actually slightly bowed like that from doing that years and years. Still do it now because it's stuck there. But what I was shown in this process was every muscle that engaged, me turning my feet out engaged all the muscles up my legs, which changed all the muscles up my back, my rib cage, my shoulders, my neck, everything changed, right? As a result of making that little shift, every muscle in my body pretty much got affected by that, right? Certainly a lot of them. Now, those muscles now are programmed with the program of, I'm not enough. I'm not cool enough. I'm not safe. I need to be something different to what I am so that I can be safe and accepted and loved. So just making that little adjustment embedded that program into every muscle that it took to wear that outfit of inauthenticity, the mask. I don't know if you've come across that before, but this is what we're getting out of our system. This is what we're stretching out when we're doing the stretching. That's what we're letting go of. The programs of inauthenticity that were installed by us trying to hold our posture a certain way, to try and look a certain way, to try and project a certain thing so that we could get love. So what's going to heal it? Love. Once we go directly to source and get the love that the body was always trying to get, we make all that redundant. The body can finally breathe a sigh of relief and let go. I always find, mate, when I stretch, it's not like stretch, oh, it's stretched. It always stretches in a way I don't expect. It's like stretch, then something over here lifts up and it goes, and the muscle opens, and I'm like, oh, that's it. I didn't need to stretch it. I needed to open something. I needed to engage a different muscle group and something opens, and it's always like, it always works differently to what I expect.
Similar with yin yoga, man. The first time I did yin yoga, because I'm always fast paced and putting action and energy out. When I did yin, where you just sit with the posture for 4 or 5 minutes, it was incredible. My hips felt so good. My inner thighs were like,
orgasm.
Oh, brilliant in class. Whoa. Man, it was
do you
incredible.
remember when we did the stretch therapy session at Gym and Juice, and a few of the guys were emotional, you were emotional, and a couple of the guys became very emotional when we stretched the hips out.
Yeah, there's only like 5 stretches, wasn't it, man, that we did with the class. It was incredible. But guys, I'm really sorry. I've got a client in 10 minutes. I'm going to have to jump off.
Yeah, I'm the same as well. I've got a class to teach at 1:30 as well. So I think this is a great place to wrap up. Yeah, it's been an amazing conversation. And Mickey, we definitely need to have you on for part 2, because I feel like this conversation, the whole stretching thing, it can go in its own debate and topic. So yeah.
Just getting started here, aren't we? It's like,
so much to cover. I'm really into this, how it's affecting the body, because I've had a very real, visceral and experiential process over the last few months, and I'm really learning about what's going on in the body. The fact that you do that's fascinating. I would love to have you on the retreats when you feel pulled to, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I think we should have a phone call, the 3 of us, and then we'll talk about it, and I'll talk about the stuff, that my methodology, and see if it resonates with you guys. You can try it out, and then we can approach the retreat.
Let's do it. Awesome. Thanks, guys. It's been amazing.
Perfect. Yeah, it's been amazing.
Man. Thank you both. Yeah, it's great. Good to talk to you both.
Thank you.
The first guest on the Unconscious Convo, Mickey.
Yes.
Yeah, it's been great. Yeah, thank you for joining us, guys. So this conversation will be on Spotify, it'll be on YouTube. We'll put a preview on Instagram, and I'll also put all of the links of the retreat and Mickey's details of social media on the bio for this podcast. And that's pretty much it, guys, right? We've got nothing else to say.
No, thanks again.
Okay. Perfect, guys.
Love to all.
See you guys later.
Easy.
Done.